Welcome back to the British Food History Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Neil Buttery, food historian and chef. In this episode of the podcast, we are going on an excursion to the Netherton Foundry workshop nestled in the Shropshire countryside to find out about spun iron cookware, something that was essentially extinct in this country until owners Neil and Sue Currie brought it back. Now, as usual, I've got one thing to mention before we begin, and that is something that I usually say at the end of the podcast, and that is to encourage you all to support the podcast by leaving positive reviews and ratings on your favourite podcast app so that the podcast can be discovered by more and more people. Each one really does make a difference. We're doing great, folks. New people are finding us, but by reviewing the podcast or sharing favourite episodes on social media, you're really doing your bit to give the podcast a boost. If you can support the podcast and blog financially, I would be forever grateful. You can donate a one-off virtual coffee or pint, or start up a £3 monthly subscription to receive access to the secret podcast. And you don't have to be in the UK to subscribe, by the way. You can use any currency. Go to britishfoodhistory.com and click on the Support the Blog and Podcast tab, where you can find out about all of the benefits of becoming a subscriber, including access to that secret podcast, where you can hear the full conversations that I record and receive a monthly newsletter, plus more. Everything I receive goes into making more content for you, whether it be on the blogs or the podcast. And don't forget, I want your material for the upcoming post-bag edition of the podcast, so drop me an email if you like, neil@britishfoodhistory.com. Are you already a fan of Netherton Foundry's products? Let me know. And if you discover them because of the podcast, let me know. And if you didn't know already, Season 10 of the podcast is sponsored by today's guests, Netherton Foundry. Neil and Sue Currie take inspiration from the local iron masters of the 18th and 19th centuries to craft traditional cookware from iron, oak and copper using non-toxic materials. And their cookware is built to last, as you will find out, from prospector pans to crumpet rings. Netherton Foundry ships to several countries outside of the UK, including the USA, so visit netherton-foundry.co.uk to find out more. Please do check them out in your country. The chances are that they have stockists, so please support them if you can. Alright, let's get cracking. I am talking with not just Neil and Sue Currie, but also their son Toby and one of their experienced craftsmen, Ryan, about spun iron cookware, a craft that was almost extinct in the United Kingdom. There's a tour of the workshop with Toby and Ryan, as well as a sit-down chat with Neil and Sue. It was recorded in the workshop with all of the noises and atmosphere, the aim being that with your headphones on, you will get an immersive experience. We talk about designing the original range and how the range quickly increased, celebrity requests, why spun iron cookware lost out to aluminium cookware, croustade irons, and how Netherton Foundry cookware brings some extra authenticity to historical foods cooked at home, amongst many other things. Those listening to the Secret Podcast will hear about the pros and cons of working with copper, how Netherton Foundry go about seeking their vintage machinery, how their stockpots came to be, and their outdoor range, plus more. I'll be back at the end, but now please enjoy spun iron cookware with Netherton Foundry. I'm at Netherton Foundry today in the beautiful Shropshire countryside, joined by Neil and Sue Currie. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast to talk to me today.
You're very welcome.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to see you here.
You've come on a beautiful, bright March day. It's not raining. We had hail yesterday, but today it's sunny outside. It's not warm, but the countryside is beginning to feel like spring here, isn't it?
It certainly is. So at some point, a decision was made to create Netherton Foundry. You've already got a background really in making these things and designing these things. But I can only imagine how difficult it must have been to come up with a very limited design or range. I assume you had maybe only had 2 or 3 things,
yes,
and you thought we need to cover a lot of bases, as many bases as possible. How do you go about? Was it a very long process getting those first few pieces out? Because they're very stylish and they're very much Netherton Foundry. You can spot one a mile off once you've
good or bad, people recognise our product a long way off.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's true. We started off by making a slow cooker. and because that's something I just wanted to do. And we made a slow cooker, but we rapidly realised we needed a bit of a range, and we'd been making some pans for ourselves. And so the frying pan ranges started to develop, and that's traditional ones with the wooden handles that you see.
Yes.
And when I started, I thought 2 will do, an 8-inch and a 10-inch. Nobody's going to need more than that, I thought. I think we now have about 170 different items.
Right, okay.
And very, very rapidly we realised that, no, it just grew. And it went from 8 to 10 to 12-inch to 14-inch. I mean, we make pile of pans 33 inches. And because people kept on finding new uses. And sometimes it was driven by us, where we had ideas. And the perspective pan really came from us, where we said, look, we really wanted to solve this problem about going from the oven to the table.
Yep.
Right, that came from us. A big discussion about how you use things in the oven, under the grill. But I say other ones where people come to us and say, this happened recently, I love your 11-inch chef's pan, but it's just not big enough for my family. Can you make me a 13-inch? I'll have a couple of them. So we actually made, and as you may say, we can spin on wooden prototypes. So we spun the first the first ones on a wood shell. We made a few and we liked it, and then we showed a few other people. And so that's often how projects will grow. Well, we'll take an individual requirement and see whether anybody else is interested. And that's how the range has grown. I mean, we have to be honest, not sometimes these people who ask for individual items, they're the only people in the world who want one of those.
Yes.
And that does happen, and those are the products that you don't see. But the range has grown, mostly in size, but then we add things to it where people say, what's the best utensil that I can use with my pans? And so, well, that really, let us show you. We'll make some that work with our pans. It's also moved into other materials, when copper in particular, where fine dining chefs have said, I love your iron pans for doing fire cooking, say, but I want something more refined.
Yep.
Can you make me out? And that took us into copper. And that's a very specialist area. Not everybody needs a copper pan all the time. It's not the sort of thing
obviously they've got great conductivity, but they are glamorous. They're like a beautiful, glamorous thing to
Absolutely.
own.
The making the weird and wonderful is the exciting part of this. I mean,
We also did a very special tiffin tin for Jenny Linford.
Oh, Jenny, she's a podcast alumnus. Is
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes. Well, for her book Repast.
Oh, right.
About all the
great.
objects in the British,
Museum. Yes.
And it is a beautiful book, and it's absolutely
Yes, good book.
fascinating. And there is what is essentially an Egyptian tiffin tin featured in the book. So between them, Neil and Ryan created a copper modern-day tiffin tin as a publication present for Jenny. Again, that was a one-off. That is Jenny's. Nobody else will ever have one. But it was exciting to do.
spun iron has been around in Britain, been cookware, certainly from the 1870s, maybe even earlier. And we often jokingly say we make a sort of 1870s, 1890s pan. And it's the sort of pan that probably late Victorians and people right the way up to the Second World War would recognise. It's made out of black iron.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's wrought iron. It's a wrought iron material. It starts very soft, and as we work it, it becomes harder. We're going to show you the machines that we spin on, and they're all about 100 years old.
Okay.
We love collecting old machines, but they're great. There's nothing better to hand spin with. They're all made in Birmingham around 100 years ago, and the pans that we make, as I say, are sort of an 1890s style pan with an iron handle, an iron body, and annealed iron rivets. And that's the really important part, because when we rivet those on, everything's the same material. It all heats up and cools down at the same time. It's structurally one item.
Yes.
Handles don't come loose. We're told that the two complaints that people have with modern frying pans is the non-stick comes off and handles become loose. So our late Victorians, Edwardians, would recognise their pan and say, I recognise that. So why did we stop making them? Well, it's probably due to the Second World War. During the Second World War, of course, there was a great shortage of iron and steel for use in domestic purposes, and even after the Second World War, because it was all being used for reconstruction. And the governments in Europe said, you can't use it. We're not going to give you any iron and steel. But you can have this nice, shiny aluminium. And so in the late 40s and the 1950s, the pan world suddenly becoming all aluminium based. Now
that's certainly a world I recognise,
Yeah.
being born in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, everything, so that's like...
everything was aluminium, and we were all
Yeah.
being sold it was light and easy and convenient, and it didn't rust. Well, it certainly was light and it didn't rust, but it wasn't convenient because everything stuck.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I remember Delia Smith really banging on about how great aluminium was. I'm assuming she was in cahoots with some manufacturer.
Well, that's what everybody made. I mean, it sort of came in the world. We suddenly had a world of light industry and light manufacturing. And if you think about it, even things like early Land Rovers, Land Rovers were made out of aluminium.
Yes, that's
because
right.
that was what was available.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the pan world was suffering from lack of iron and steel. They were making pans out of aluminium, but the pans weren't very good. And so they needed a coating to go onto that to make them usable. And those were the non-stick coatings that we know today.
Yes.
And sometimes they cooked quite well and sometimes less well, but they never last as well as one would expect. We typically, in years gone by, used to test these, and we'd see them often perform excellently for the first 10 uses and then rapidly decline. We jokingly say ours is the opposite. It's often the worst it will be with the day it arrives, and the more you use it, the better it gets.
Yes.
And that's the nature of seasoned pans.
When I look at old cookery books and you see the sort of the batterie de cuisine that they kind of, this is what a kitchen should have. The words there, the names there, but they don't say what it actually is. You might get some diagrams, but even then, some illustrations, but even then you can't tell. So I assumed everything was copper or cast iron, and that spun iron was something that Netherton Foundry, not necessarily had invented, but I thought it was a very modern way of doing things.
It essentially did disappear in Britain.
Yeah.
It remained for the catering world and in other parts of Europe. France in particular, it survived, but it really went down to a very, very niche product. And it certainly really wasn't available to normal people. You just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And if you could, it wouldn't be of a particularly great quality. It would be a pretty basic product. And Netherton Foundry were producing cast products. We were making products out of cast iron.
Right.
Making lots of casseroles and steak presses, and a few of these items we still make. But one of the problems which we discovered with all cast cookware is essentially it's quite heavy. Okay. It often performs very well, and there certain aspects. Everyone likes their cast casserole dish, for example, can be very good.
Yeah.
But it comes with a penalty of always being very heavy. The advantage of spinning is that we can spin to the weight that you need. So if you want a wok, you want it very light because you want the heat to go in very fast and out very fast.
Yes.
So we'll spin that as thin as 1 millimetre. For us, an everyday frying pan might be 2 millimetres thick, sort of ones like you've got at home. And that does all that bacon and egg and all those everyday uses. And if you want something like a steak pan, we'll make it out of 4 millimetres, 3 or 4 millimetres, depending on what you want. Thicker still.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to get to the sort of thickness which is the thinnest that you can make a casting out of.
I see. Shall we go on a tour?
Let's go on a tour.
Okay, lead the way, Toby. In we go. Oh, wow.
I'll just give you one. Obviously, it's a working environment, so there are sharp things about.
Now, let me introduce you to Ryan here. He's from the art school world as well, in clock making and jewellery. But now he's working in our world of cookware. So he's going to, with Toby, take you round and show you our spinning processes, our old machines.
So, but can I just ask you just to introduce yourself onto the mic, what you do at Netherton Foundry?
My name's Ryan. I effectively do a little bit of everything.
What's the first step then? What are you getting delivered to Netherton when you're making something like a spun iron pan? What's arriving that you actually have to work with?
Well, the metal discs arrive.
Yeah, so essentially all of our pans, anything that is round, starts out as a disc.
I can't imagine how it's possible to do. It all seems a bit magical at this moment, but so it's interesting to go behind the wizard's curtain, as it were. What's our first step?
So the spinning process is a little bit difficult to explain. You kind of have to, especially in audio form, we're going to have to imagine it. So we're starting with a machine that looks a little bit like a wood lathe,
Yes.
in a sense that it's got a spinning axis on its side and a motor. And what we are loading into that is something called a chuck. So that is the inside form of a pan. So that's a solid piece of steel. But if you imagine, if you filled a pan with jelly, let it set and flipped upside down, it's the inside shape of that.
Oh, I see. Yes.
So you've got the inside.
Yeah.
We are then, against that, placing the disc, depending on the size, we place that right up against it, and then we start spinning it. So this is done at room temperature, and then we're spinning it quite quickly. So as this disc spins round, we then gently form the sides against this tool. So we're gently pushing the metal and stretching it to match that form of the inside. So this is often done in stages, depending on how steep it is. So for something like a frying pan, there's not very much movement because the sides aren't very steep.
I see.
But with a stockpot or a saucepan, you've got a lot of metal to move and you're going quite a sharp angle. So this has to be done in stages and be worked. Once you get going with spinning though, the advantage is once the tool's in, so it's easy to replicate things because you're just then loading a disc in and forming to the mould. So you can keep going and get repetition.
Are there, you probably know the precise number of this, how many people in the country have the skills to be able to do this?
Well, that's something that's thinning out actually, because both of our spinners had previously worked for other metal spinning companies in the West Midlands, which have both closed down, unfortunately, because there's not enough demand for spinning. It's becoming a dying art. So probably now in the West Midlands, I could name 4 people who know how to spin.
Okay.
There's some people in Portsmouth. I don't actually know how many, but there's a business in Portsmouth that do some spinning. Apart from that, that might be all that there is in the UK. There's a couple of people who may have learnt how to do it and aren't doing it so much. Actually, my father-in-law learnt to spin when he went out to Australia. He ended up making car parts for a while in Australia, but found when he came back to UK, no one did it. So it was, So actually for him, it was a slightly useless skill to have learned because no one then was able to employ him back in the UK doing the same thing.
That's just crazy, isn't it? You know, you learn a trade and you expect it to something that you're going to be using for your entire life. You go away for a bit, come back and it's just it's just not there. That's crazy.
There was a guy who turns up at a jewelry school in Birmingham and teaches for a few days a year, and that's it.
Right.
But that's for jewelry students, and it's all copper and aluminium, and much more softer metals, so it's a lot easier to learn to spin. With steel, it's a lot more effort because steel has a natural springiness to it, so it wants to do exact opposite of what you're trying to do to it.
Okay.
You notice if you stand next to it as it's spun, it wants to come back at you. It's quite frustrating sometimes.
People are always surprised when they see our spinning because they expect that we need heat to work with metal, whereas spinning is done at room temperature and it's just a mechanical process on the disc. Everyone sees pictures of foundries and forges and expects that metal, especially iron and steel, has to get hot and that red hot before you can do anything with it to make it soft. But by doing it at room temperature, it means the metal has got far less stress and pressure put into it because it's not being stretched and contracted by that heating process.
Looking at this process with modern eyes, it means you're not using an absolutely crazy amount of energy to make something at the end of it.
Once it's going, it's actually quite a small motor in a spinning machine, so yeah, it's not using an awful lot of electricity, which is definitely a benefit. But it does require a bit because on the ramp up, because the tools are a solid lump of steel, the bigger you go, the more energy you need to start it. So things like our blini pan, very easy to get spinning. Bigger products like the paella pan, the tool for that really needs a good bit of oomph to get going because it's such a large bit of material.
It's amazing what you make there with. It looks like some kind of robot arm that it was using to essentially bend
the wheel. So it's a relatively modern piece of tooling in terms of metal spinning.
Yeah.
We use these things called scissors, which instead of, if you notice the way he's using it, it's up in his shoulder underneath. The scissors use your hip. So you use your entire body through it.
I see.
Which is a lot easier on the body, and it's much easier with thicker materials. Unfortunately, Mike doesn't know how to do that, so he uses a much more traditional method. Really old school, so Victorians use literally just a polished bit of steel, which is what we use to spin the copper pans. So we've got a couple over there, but it's literally just a bit of steel that's just flat. That's pretty much it. It's been polished over the edge, and that's it. That's a lot more effort to use, and it's a lot more scary because it is also a very dangerous job.
Yes.
There's a lot that can go wrong and come flying at your face.
yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Can we come and have a look at these machines?
Yeah.
That are ancient.
Yes, yeah.
Things were built to last, weren't they? 120 years ago or whatever.
Yes, very solid. And so we use these for processes, things, putting holes into pans so that we can attach handles.
Yeah.
We use it for riveting. We use it for bending handles, flattening things, because the best thing about the press is you can change the attachment. They are multifunctional tools, so we can change what the job is. Anything where you want to put force in a downwards motion, it will be perfect for. You can then adapt what you'd like that to do. So we have here, starting from the right, we've got a press for putting a bend into the stub for our wok handle, so it matches the curve. We've got one that punches 4 holes, because our wok has 4 holes in the rivet. Then 3, 2, 1. We have one here which is set with a angled block.
Wow, that's a mean
which has
isn't it?
a big lever and an angle block to be able to put bends into things. So for our utensils, being able to put the bend in the spatula blade, we want a really accurate, sharp bend in it.
Yes.
And so it's the perfect tool because you can line it up every time and apply the exact same force.
Wow. So these are things you don't think about when you pick up a spatula. that absolute beast was required.
Yes. What we think probably is the most important thing about our cookware and what makes it really stand out is the finish.
Yes.
So we use a seasoned finish where we use natural flax oil, which is baked onto the surface. That is what that deep black colour you see with all of our products is. This is a great finish, we think, because every time you use it, it will get better. So any oils or fats that you cook with can build onto that surface and it'll get better and better. It'll get smoother and smoother. And so you'll see my frying pan at home, which I've had 10, 11 years now, is a nice shiny black. It almost looks like it's been spray painted because of how smooth and shiny it is. The other advantage, though, of a seasoned finish is it means you can restore it. So anything you've done at home, if you've burnt something to it, you've left something and it's stuck, you've been too aggressive with the scourer, or even actually you put it through something like the dishwasher, which we say not to, you can go and restore it. So we actually had a young lad who must have been about 16 who one day called us in tears because his mom really helpfully had put his loaf tins through the dishwasher and it had come out fully rusted. But it can be restored at home. You just rub away the rust with steel wool, wipe some oil on, put it in your oven at home, you'll get exactly the same deep black finish.
I see. It's always been a mystery to me. It almost feels like a contradiction. You're using iron, but it's not iron. It's not iron coloured. It's so nice because I'm a proud owner of the £2 loaf tin with cloche, which it's very good. It's nice to see it kind of all in its earlier stages of production there.
The seasoning is entirely applied by hand. So at the moment we've got Julia and Zoe doing this, and so they're using either paintbrushes to get into the difficult to reach areas, or they've got pure cotton rag for wiping over big areas. So this is the flax oil they're using. It's completely edible. You could go and drink that straight out of the pan if you really desired, or put it on your salad. And they're applying it to the pan, and then it just goes into our ovens. And essentially they are just a big version of what you have at home. Imagine your fan oven at home, but you can walk into it.
I really like the smell of it.
It doesn't create a lot of vapour. So,
because olive oil just smokes. It's horrible, isn't it, at high temperatures.
So it's got a distinctive scent, but it isn't an overpowering. So as Julia says, you quite easily forget that it's there.
I think one of the things, if you've not used spun iron equipment, the worry is that it's going to take it. You're going to have to do all this seasoning. You're going to have to use it several times before it starts to work because it's different. The reason people don't use this stuff is because it's hard to use and modern stuff's easy to use. That's not what's happened, right? That's not the reason these things dropped out of favour.
No, exactly. It's people sort of have a sticking point. Oh, it can't go in the dishwasher. Everything must go in the dishwasher. But actually, it's even easier than that because it's just hot water and a brush, and you can clean it. So whilst your dishwasher's taking an hour and a half to run, you can wash your pan in 2 minutes, stick it back on the hob, and it's dry, ready to go again. So actually, it's easier. Things like that. The seasoned layer, we provide it with a seasoned layer straight away. So you can take it straight out of the box and get using it. It will start cooking straight away. And as I said earlier, the more you cook with it, the more oil you add to it, the easier it becomes to use. So actually, just using it every day, cooking with it all the time, it will get better. So it's not something to leave and keep out for special or only use occasionally. We really encourage people, just use it all the time. Make it your everyday.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of misconceptions. That I think the ones that I maybe had, I remember being slightly nervous about me. It sounds ridiculous now because I've done it so many times since. But I remember the first time making a casserole in a prospective pan. I was like, oh, it's all very liquidy in there. Is it going to come out rusty the next day? Am I using it right? And of course, yeah, you can just do whatever you like. It's going to be fine. Yeah, I remember being slightly tentative about it. There's lots of misconceptions that I must admit because I haven't grown up using this. I've grown up using aluminium stuff because that's what my mum used. Yeah. So I've had to take a leap of faith almost, at times.
And because people don't know about it, there's that, like you said, that little bit of fear because it's not being advertised and pushed to everyone all the time. Whereas these non-stick coatings that everyone's very comfortable with, we're comfortable with because we constantly see them. We're constantly being advertised and told all of these properties, where actually they're having to do that because they're probably not that great. Yeah. So it's more important for them to push those narratives that it can be used for everything.
Yes, and that idea of selling time to people as well, isn't it? It's like, because you see those adverts of people using their cast iron stuff and they're scrubbing away at it and sweating it. It's all completely ridiculous.
Exactly.
And they're selling like, oh no, if you buy our stuff, you're buying some more free time, and it's just not true.
No, and it didn't go out of favour. People didn't stop using it because it was difficult or time consuming. As we were saying, it just got out of use because the material was being used for other things. So iron became less popular. And aluminium came in, but you can't season aluminium. It doesn't work in the same way. So that's why they had to come up with these coatings. And, they took coatings from other industries. Those sorts of coatings actually came from the military because they needed stuff where it wasn't going to get wet and worn down. So they used those coatings because it worked for that. So it will work on our cookware.
When do you put the little... I don't know what the word you use. When do you put your little Netherton Foundry nipple on?
Oh, the brass rivet.
Does that happen? Right? Yeah. The brass rivet.
Brass rivet, the technical term. So once everything's been through the oven, it will then be finished. So that'll either have, if it's going to have a wooden handle, so wooden handle covers or a wooden knob, or if it's going to have the cast iron knob and the brass rivet. So that is all done afterwards, once it's come out of the oven.
Yeah. Brass rivet, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much there, Toby and Ryan, for a fascinating tour. But now, time for tea and Yorkshire curd tart and cheese scones and to pick up the conversation with Sue and Neil once more. It's quite obvious, Sue, that you're very much in conversation with customers.
All sorts of customers.
Yeah.
And they range from someone who is new to cooking and somebody said to them, you want to buy a nice pan, but they really have no idea what they're doing with it.
Yes.
Or somebody's bought them one as a present. So those are the people that we're talking to over the phone, at food festivals, face to face, or as close to face as you can get via a telephone, but having a conversation with them, trying to find out what they want to cook, how they want to cook it, what they see as challenges, all the things that you might have learnt in a domestic science lesson if you were as old as me, but you don't learn anymore. So we talk to customers on that level, right down at the very, very basics. We talk to our shop customers, people who are selling the stuff, and they're fascinating because they're only going to sell things they like, Yep. They've got an investment in the product.
Yes, they really pour over their stuff, don't they? I mean,
they do. Yes, because if they can't sell it, they can't pay their rent and they're going to go out of business. So they're going to buy things that they have a real interest in, that they personally have a love for. And any number of them will buy one extra with their first order and take it home and play with it. Yeah. So that they've got the idea. And then we've got our, what shall we call them? Celebrity customers.
Celebrities, yes, the celebs.
Yes, the celebs. They are a fascinating bunch of people. We've got chefs, we've got food writers, we've got pop stars, all sorts of people.
I remember seeing Nigella using your bread pans.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Because you can spot your stuff a mile off.
You can,
you're not,
which is
no
really
hiding,
nice. I mean,
which is a good thing, obviously.
It is a good thing. But it's quite discreet in your kitchen. We're not screaming at you, but you can spot a pan. The likes of Nigella and Diana Henry.
Yes.
Mark Diacono, Nigel Slater. These are genuine fans. We've not sent them a promo pack. We've not sent them a check with a lot of noughts. They found us. But these are people, yes, they're in the public eye. Yes, they've got a massive reach. They don't have to say nice things about us.
No.
But they do.
Yeah.
And that means so much to us because that is a genuine love of the product. They've got one, they use it.
Well, no, it's the reason I'm here, because I use your stuff. See, because I don't know if you listen to many podcasts, Sue. If they do have advertisements, if it's food, it's McDonald's or that Hello Fresh.
Give me strength.
Or it's betting companies. So I was like, I'm not having that. No. So I wanted to speak to people. I'm so really happy that you're working with me on this season. But I would have come down and done an interview with you anyway, because I use your stuff anyway, and I just did a bit of a pun, and annoyed you by email saying, do you fancy doing this? Because for me, when it comes to cooking these traditional foods and trying to approximate, because you can never recreate exactly something from 150 years ago,
no.
But I want to try and get as close as possible in a realistic modern kitchen setting. And one of the things I was unable to do in my all-electric tiny little kitchen was get things like really good sears on things, like you are using old equipment with with good heat retention. I'm in a 1980s apartment block. I'm not going to be able to do that. And I originally bought the £2 loaf tin with the cloche at first, actually, and then I got the prospector pan. And I remember just doing a steak. It wasn't even for anything food history. It's just there was a special offer at my local butcher on steaks. That's the perfect way to test it out. And it was like, oh my God, this is like, it's just unbelievable. Kind of crust that you get on there from a really high quality pan. It's like, oh, I've actually finally got the tools.
This is the important thing for us, because we're incredibly proud of what we're doing here, of making the stuff, of not using PFAS, of training up a new generation of craftspeople, of using local materials, all that kind of thing. So we're really, really proud of the cookware.
Yeah.
But we're also deeply interested in what it's going to be used for. It's a bit like if your dog has puppies, you want to check the home they're going to, and we want them to go out to places where people are really going to use them, who are going to love them, who are going to put as much care into their cooking as anything else that they do. And it's not just about buying the grass-fed organic meat or the free-range chicken or the organic eggs and the expensive cauliflower. What are you going to cook that in? And what's the end result going to be? And so for us, talking to the customers, that's all part of the experience. You're not just buying a pan, you're buying your meals.
We do get genuinely excited when people send in pictures of what they've been cooking and what they've been doing. I mean, it's a favourite part of that. I think we're going to do a prize for this, an annual competition of interesting things you've cooked in our pans.
Yes. What have I cooked in your pans that might win? I tell you what, I made a toad in a hole in your prospector pan recently. It rose up like a big crown, splendid crown.
I saw the photos.
Did you see it?
I did.
It was great. It's the best toad in a hole I've ever had.
Having that extra mass of material compared to, say, a thin supermarket tray means that when you pour in the ingredients, it's not dropping the temperature, it's holding that. So you're ahead of a game.
I saw one of the Inside the Factory type programmes on the TV, and they'd been to a maker of exceedingly good cakes to talk about Bakewell tarts.
Oh, right, okay.
And they had a material scientist as they sort of step out, who was talking about pie dishes. Unbeknown to me, it was out of the blue, he just said, well, if you want a really good pie dish, it's got to be black and it's got to be metal. And of course, that's what I use to make the historic curd tart that we've been eating
yes,
today.
Yes, it's very good. Yorkshire curd tart.
Yorkshire curd tart, very historical, very traditional. But that black iron, you don't get the soggy bottom.
No.
You get the wonderful heat transference, which means your tarts are crispy top and bottom.
I guess people say it a lot, and they say it a lot with food and cheapness. That is, it's a false economy, but the same goes for all the other trappings required when it
Yep.
comes to
Yep.
when it comes to cooking. How many baking trays have I thrown away? That have just been
There's a lovely story
that
about
buckle
why.
when you put them in the oven.
That's why we made our baking sheet, because we met Val Stones from
Bake Off?
Bake Off.
Bake Off, yep. Yes, I remember her. She's
Ludlow
great.
Food Festival. She's wonderful. But she's an ex-headmistress and still
Oh, is she? I
has
didn't know that. Oh,
the
okay.
headmistress bearing about her. So when she advanced honours across a field at
Right.
the end of a day at Ludlow, it was, what have we done? We were
Right.
transported many decades back to,
Right.
to that dread of, and she said, right, you're the people I need. I want a baking sheet that doesn't go boing the minute I put it in the oven.
Yeah. Yeah,
And that's
it's
how
hard
that
to
was
find
born.
one that doesn't do that. It really, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've had chefs who ring us up and say, "Can we make a croustade?"
Right, this is what I was moving towards.
Well,
Well, better explain what a croustade is. At least from the Netherton Foundry point of view, they've got a very long history. The croustade.
Yes, well, ours is basically, it's for making a tiny little canapé cup. So it's a shape on the end of a stick. That's the simplest description, a solid block on the end of a stick. You dip it into hot oil, then into a batter. And you can use Yorkshire pudding batter. You don't have to do anything fancy.
well, we made our first croustade iron for a very talented chef in Manchester.
His name's Simon, and he is the chef at Manor. That's
I know.
MANA
Yes.
in Manchester.
I know of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was just entirely out of the blue. We didn't know him, but he clearly knew about us and came and said, this is what I want. Can you make it? So then it was back to Neil and his drawing board, because we don't have CAD, we have paper and
Back to-
pencil.
literally back to the
Literally back to
drawing
the
board.
drawing board. Yes. You then dip it into hot oil and a lovely crispy little cup is formed and it just drops off. If you go on onto our website and find the product, you can see a little video of me making some.
When Manor asked us for a croustade iron, it was great because, and in fact, the first one was actually a large lump of aluminium sawn up, dipped into batter on the end of what was essentially a metal clothes
Oh, coat hanger.
coat hanger. Well, coat hanger. So that's an experiment. But anyway, the new ones are a little more refined than that. But they keep on popping up. What's the programme they keep on popping up on?
Great British Menu.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's one of those things where I remember going to your website thinking, well, that's an obscure thing to sell, croustade iron. Who's going to buy that?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, it's like when a member of your family's pregnant, suddenly everybody's pregnant.
Yeah.
And I'd seen the croustade,
Yeah.
suddenly I'm saying, hang on a minute.
There was a lovely,
Everyone's buying.
There was a lovely story at one of the food festivals we went to, and somebody said, right, I'm going to buy one of those. I said, are you going to use it? She said, no, it's a present. She said, it's a present for a friend of ours who knows everything, or at least he thinks he does. So when I present this to him, and he's got no idea what it is, his face is going to be a picture.
I get the chance to be smug for once.
Here's another thing. Do you know what this is?
I do not know what it is. Do you pour batter through it?
No.
So we better try it. We better describe this. It's a very long hand, something with a very long handle.
I didn't know what these were until 2 or 3 years ago.
It's a cone shape with a tiny little sort of hole at the bottom. It's got to be pouring something through.
So
right?
the
There's
handle's
hole
about
in
a
it.
metre long.
Yeah.
That's the giveaway, because you need to be a metre away from the flames.
Right.
It's called a flambadou.
A flambadou. Right. Yes, I've
Right.
heard of a flambadou.
The idea is you put the cone into the charcoal, into the coals,
Yeah.
and you heat that up until it is more or less glowing red.
Or white hot.
Yeah.
White hot. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
As hot as hot can be. You then drop in, it could be marrow fat, duck fat.
Yeah.
Of course, it's so hot, the fat will instantly flame.
Yes.
Which is drama, but then it will drip that over whatever you decide. One of the
Fantastic.
favourites is marrow fat over barbecued oysters.
La-di-da.
Very la-di-da.
Sounds
So
good,
this is
though.
taking your barbecue to the next level, to coin a popular cliche. We send these regularly to a chef in Singapore.
Because croustade, actually going back to croustades, I just thought I was the only, because you read them in really old books like from the 17th century or whatever.
Yeah.
Is what you would pour your custard in, and then you'd bake that in a cool oven. Weirdly, it's where we get the word custard from,
yes.
even though it's named after the thing you poured the custard. It's very strange. The English language is a very strange thing.
Yes, but otherwise we'd be calling it crème anglaise, wouldn't it? No, that would never do.
That wouldn't do. No, that's true. That's true. It is custard. You're in the beautiful Shropshire countryside. Is Shropshire traditionally been a hotbed for this kind of manufacturing? I'm talking about 100, 200 years ago or whatever.
Absolutely.
Industrial Revolution.
It's almost the starting point of the Industrial Revolution in Britain. Very simply, because underneath us here, there's coal.
Right.
Not enormous amounts, but in the 17th century and the 18th century, it was easy to get at because it wasn't very deep down. And in fact, there is a coal mine 2 miles over that way.
Okay. There's
enormous big remnants of coal mine in Highley, which is about 6 miles away, where we first started the business. When we first started up, we were over in Highley, which is about 6 miles away. And all of this coal was easily transported up to Ironbridge, a few miles further on the river. Ironbridge is surrounded by wood, which you also needed because you needed charcoal, and it also has a layer of limestone. And in the process of making iron, you need lime as well. So all the ingredients for making iron were here, and it was on the river, so you had transport. And so, the most famous proponent of that was the Abraham Darby, famous for the Iron Bridge, which we use for our logo. He started his first foundry in Ironbridge. He was creating, really right from the beginning, cooking pots were a big ingredient, and they were producing those right into the 20th century. So that they were producing cooking pots in Shropshire for probably best part of 150 years.
Right.
In ranges of sizes. They probably had almost as many items as we do. Okay. And those cooking pots, again, were exported around the world. They're particularly sort of pot-belly shape, and they're very distinctive. Maybe one of these days we ought to recreate one of those.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. It must be a nice feeling, though, to... you weren't handed a baton. The baton was completely put down, and you've had to pick it back up again.
Well,
must be something satisfying about carrying that on.
Eventually, the Shropshire part of the Industrial Revolution burnt out because there wasn't enough coal.
Yeah.
And it then moved over towards the Black Country. So it moved east towards the Black Country and Birmingham, where there was more coal, more people, eventually better transport links with the railway. And that sort of left... That Shropshire part of the Industrial Revolution then became a bit of a backwater, and it sort of then started to revert back to the rural Shropshire that we have now. We're now sitting on a farm. We're on a dairy farm. There's still coal underneath us, but nobody digs for it now.
I assume, obviously, because you've revitalised this trade that was essentially... I guess the number of people who can do this, you can count maybe on the fingers of two hands in the country.
It's pretty limited in terms of the number of people are spinning.
Yeah.
There's nobody doing exactly what we do, for sure.
Yeah.
There are people who are making aluminium catering pans. There's a few people doing other things in copper, but there's not people really doing it for the general public like us in any volume. Spinning is an endangered skill. There's a list of endangered skills, and it's on it. I mean, I suspect probably, Hanson cab lamp fitters might be rarer, but the core of the spinners are now tend to be quite old. So it is important for us that we train that next generation. Well, the guys you've seen here, they're the next generation.
I mean, it's amazing that you're finding you're employing an apprentice. You've got a family-run business, of course, where your children are very active. Not everyone is that lucky to find
we are.
people who want to learn trades or want to continue in the family business. It really is nice to see.
Neither of them thought they were going to. Neither of our two children who were involved in this, they're in their late 20s. They decided that this was something that they saw developing, and they'd been involved in it since they were teenagers. And I guess they felt part of it, and they are part of it. They in their mid-teens they were going to trade shows in Germany and helping us at food festivals and so on. So they've been part of it, and I think it's very much their business as much as it is ours. So we are in that handing over process now, where we hope to be involved in the business for quite a few more years yet, but they're starting to take the lead.
You two don't seem like the retiring type to me. You're gonna have to be pushed out,
I think that
shoved out by.
Yeah. Well, Toby, my son, he has my retirement date on his calendar, and he reminds me.
Is he crossing
regularly.
it off with
Yeah.
a big red pen?
Yeah,
Each
that's it.
day.
Yeah. He's already bought the retirement card, so he can push me out.
Got
Yeah.
he's ordered that carriage clock. Thank you very much, Neil, Sue, Toby, Ryan, and everybody at Netherton Foundry for making me feel so welcome there. Now there's lots of links in the show notes to the items mentioned, like Val Stone's baking sheet. There's some videos of the cookware being made in the workshop, and Sue making those croustades, of course. And there's links to their social media, website, plus links to Jenny Linford's book, Repast, and Diane Henry's book From the Oven to the Table, which features a Netherton Foundry prospector pan upon its cover. I'm going to be posting a couple of recipes using Netherton's cookware. The first one will be kedgeree, one of my favourite foods, so keep a lookout for that on the blog. There are links to pertinent blog posts like Toad and Hole, plus my recipes for Yorkshire curd tart and scones. But it's time to go. The mixing and sound engineering was done by Thomas Ntinas of the Delicious Legacy podcast, who has just done a great episode on traditional Yorkshire food. Right, off I go. Until next time, cheerio.